Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to continue with chapter number 13, that is Django forms from the subject web frameworks. So, these are the contents from the chapter number 13. From that, we have seen about form classes, validations, authentications. Now, we are going to see about advanced form processing techniques. Here, Django advanced form processing. It includes partial forms, Ajax, and files. So here partial forms. Here in partial forms, you may find yourself with the need to use a partial form based on pre-existing Django form. So here, for example, if you get a request to add a similar form that you have created already, you have created one form, and you get a request to add a similar form, like here, consider that contact form. You have created a contact form with some fields, and you get a request to add some similar form to the contact form. So, but without requiring the name and email fields from that contact form. So, for example, if you have created one contact form that having some fields including name and email fields, and you get a request to add a similar form to that contact form without requiring that name and email ID fields from the previous contact form. So, since that contact form is tried and tested, including the necessary post processing logic like adding the form to the CRM, that is customer relationship management system. So it's worthwhile idea to use that contact form class because that fields are required fields in the contact form fields, and you get a request to add that similar form without requiring that name and email ID fields. So here, how do you go about using a Django form partially in this case here? So here, the first alternative to achieve that partial form is to hide that unneeded form fields from the user. That means in this case, we don't need that name and email ID field, so we have to hide that field. So here, allowing the original form class to remain intact while not requiring the subclass. Here, this is the least invasive approach, but you need to be careful with the two aspects. Like from the first aspect is the form template layout. Here in this listing, you will see that we have to hide the two fields. Here, this is the form method post that your Django form with fields marked as a hidden. So we are going to hide two fields, name and email here. So this is the form we have created with the form method post, then CSRF token, that labels are there, some fields are there, some error messages. Here at last, in this case, at last we have to hide the two fields that is unnecessary, or we don't require that fields. Like here, in this case we don't need that name and email field here. So we have to write like form dot name dot as hidden and form dot email dot as hidden. So we are going to hide that two fields. Here we are going to hide that email ID and email field and name field. So these fields are not necessary in the new request for the adding that similar form in the contact form. So we have hide that two fields here, name and email ID. See here how to hide that two field use as hidden here. Then here in this listing, you notice the form fields are output individually and do not use a shortcut method like form.as tables or loops. We haven't used here. So the reason is the last form fields are explicitly output as a hidden through the as hidden method. We have used that as hidden method for hiding that two fields here. So this method generates a form field as a hidden HTML input. As a hidden HTML input, like your input type is equals to hidden. It is irrespective of its form field data type. So this mechanism effectively hides fields from end users but keep the fields as a part of the form. Here these fields are the part of the form, but these fields are hidden from the customer or from the end user. So why it is important to keep that field as a part of the form, not just removing that? So because of validation here. So how you see here, we are going to keep that field as a part of the system, a part of that form, and we are just removing, or we are going to hide that fields here. So yeah, remember, the form instance has not changed. We are not going to change the instance of that form, and we are going to change only the requirements. Only the requirements. You may not need that here. We don't need that name and email ID field on this template page, but the form instance and validation logic doesn't know that. So here we have to take care about that require fields here and the require values, that we just want to hide that fields, we don't want to change the instance of that form. So here, if you publish the template that we have list here in the previous slide, that without taking care of this second aspect, like you might be surprised when you realize the form never passes the validation. Form is not going to pass the validation, that the underlying contact form class treats that email ID field as required. In previous form, that email ID and that consider that email ID field as a required field is there. But in new request, we don't want that field. So here, in this case, we don't, we are not going to change the instance of that form. We are going to hide that fields only. Okay, so here in the case of a name field, we are going to write like here, or we are going to configure with the required value as false. Okay, and for the year you can see, therefore in order for the template in that listing, the form must be initialized with the value here, like form is equals to contact form, initial is email id here. By default we are going to pass the value for that email field here. Okay, so here by initializing this form in this manner, the email form field is given this initial value as a hidden. This is as a hidden input. By default, this field is hidden and having this value. So once a user submits the form, the email is transferred back to the Django as a part of the form. So where validation passes, since the processing logic gets all its expected values, because we have mentioned that value in this field here. Okay, so then second alternative is to achieve partial forms. We have to achieve that partial forms is to create a subclass from a form class and delete the unneeded fields. So how to delete that unneeded fields here? Here you can see this Django form subclass with remove parent fields here. That is from this model we have created. We have to import the contact form, then class contact comment only form. From the contact form here, we are going to define initialization here from the self, some arguments and keyword arguments are there. Here you can see that we are going to removing that parent fields, like delete self dot fields and field name, delete self dot fields and the email field. See this name field and email field that we are going to remove here using delete here. See del self dot fields inside the rectangle bracket, name field and the email field here. Okay, so next is Ajax form submission. We have seen that partial forms. Now the Ajax form submission. How to pass that Ajax forms to a Django server. So here it is a technique where JavaScript on a web page communicates with the server side application. So re-renders the web page with the result of this communication, all without a web page transition. So Django forms are often designed to submit their data via Ajax. Java forms are designed to submit their data via Ajax to create a smoother workflow, that is without changing the original web page with a web form. Without changing that page, we are going to send that form to the Django. So here the workflow for a form that uses Ajax, as far as the initial form delivery is identical to that of regular Django form or regular Django non-Ajax form, you create an unbound form instance in a view method, which is passed to a template for rendering. So the first difference in Django forms that submit their data via Ajax is the web page on which the unbound form is delivered. So it must also contain the necessary JavaScript logic to send the form data to the server side application and also process the server side response. So here you can see this JavaScript jQuery logic to submit Django form via Ajax. So here this is a sample form here, that is the HTML template is there, that we are going to create one form here. See this feedback form is there and some fields are here. We have hidden this field, like we have hidden name and email ID fields are hidden here. Okay, we have taken one button, that is submit feedback. This is the feedback form. Then we are going to write a script here. See the script tag. We are going to write the Ajax script here. That is document.ready and function, that is feedback form is there, and there is one event. Okay. So here see dollar dot ajax data. This dot serialize. So we are going to serialize the data and some actions we are going to perform here, that after clicking on the submit button, it should alert one message that is successfully send the feedback and thank you. Okay, so this is a feedback form we have created, that is, see that that first part of that listing we have seen that this is Django form layout. Yeah, this form is Django forms layout. Then here in the form tag, that it includes the action attribute, that in previous Django forms that action attribute was not used because the serving URL like get request and processing URL post request, it was the same one. So in this listing, the action attribute explicitly tells the browser the URL where it should send the post request. In case of that URL stores feedback is the Django template. So your different URLs are necessary in this case because Django views methods that handles AJAX request or response are different from Django view methods that handle standard web request and responses. Okay. So here now you know that Django form data is submitted to the server side. We have created one script for the Ajax and we have created one Django form template and we have submitted the data to the server. Now in this listing, it illustrates that in this listing it illustrates the Django view method. That is Django view method necessary to handle this Ajax request payload after submitting that request to the server. Here you can see that Django view method to process Django form via Ajax. It contains, here see, hash urls.py from the main, then URL patterns. It contains URL from the stores and includes this model coffeehouse.stores.urls, namespace is stores. And for the urls.py from the app store, URL pattern is URL view.index and name is equals to index. And for the feedback, views.feedback, name is feedback from the app store. And now views.py from the app store here, from django.http import HTTP response and JSON response. We are going to importing JSON response and HTTP response from the Django HTTP module. And from that copyhouse dot about forms, we have to import that contact form we have created previously. So we are going to define one feedback here with the request. It's going to handle that request here. If that request dot post, then form is equals to contact form and that request dot post. So if that form is valid, it returns the JSON response, that is it returns the success on true, else it returns false or it gives an errors, that it returns HTTP response as a hello from feedback. Then now we are going to see about the files in forms. This is the last point from the chapter number 13, that is files in forms. It is the part of that advanced form processing techniques. Okay, so here Django offers a couple of form fields to capture files through forms, like forms.image field is there. And however, although these form fields generates the necessary HTML and validation logic to enforce files are submitted via forms, so there are a couple of sub entries are there, subtitles are there related to processing files in forms. So the first issue is the HTML form tag. For forms that transfer files must explicitly set the encoding type to, here see the encoding type like enset type is equals to multipart slash form data in addition to using method, like method is post. And the second issue is, it is the second issue is the contents of the files are placed in the Django request object under the special file dictionary key. So there are, these are the two issues with the HTML form tags. And second issue is the contents of the files are placed in the Django request objects. Then here see the listing is Django form with file fields and corresponding view method and template layout. Now here see the form.py file here. From Django imports form. We are going to import forms here, and one class is there sharing form from the form. Here note that photo field requires Python PIL and other operating system libraries here. Here we are going to write like videos is equals to forms dot, it is a file field, and photos is equals to forms dot file field with the widget is equal to widgets is equals to forms dot clearable file inputs. Okay, and next file is views dot py file. In this file we are going to define one index here with the request. it will check for the if request method is equals to post, then it will proceed with like form is equals to sharing form and handles that request dot post and request dot files. So it will check if it's valid, that validity of that form, like if that form is valid, it will process that file data and process that data and insert into the database and generates email id, right, redirect to new url. If that form is valid, it will return a response as a like http response redirect about, it will process with the thank you page here. And else it will proceed with like it will generate a blank form and it will request as the, or it will get back to the sharing form here and returns the render like request dot social. It will move towards the index page, and that index file contains, or that index page is like it contains a form with the fields. Okay, that index file contains the form and it will contains one button for the submit photo here. Then here, in this case, that HTML form tag declares the required attributes, and in addition, notice that how that request files reference is used to create a bound form along with the standard request post here. We have seen that with the standard request post. Okay. Then the remaining form structure in listing are identical to regular non-file forms. Here, it is similar to regular Django form processing. Once a form is valid, that is, we have written that if it is valid here, if form is valid, then it returns true. You will want to do something with the contents of that form data. Therefore, in this case, you need to access the request files to do with something with the files uploaded by a user. Okay. So here we are having two options here, that is for requested files for the photos and for the video, that is user either upload the file as a photo or video here. Okay, so this is all about the files in forms. Okay, that there are some file upload handlers are there for handling that files with the, if that by default the file is less than point 2.5 in Django. Okay, so it uses memory file upload handler to place the contents of uploaded file into memory. Okay, so for that you can define file upload handlers in settings.py file. Here you can see that next one is like you are going to process that file with the and save that procedures to media root here. Okay, so these are some examples of that files in the Django here, or files from the files in forms here. Okay, so that's it for today's session. In this way we have finished with the chapter number 13. Thank you.